Welcome to What God Got to Do With It, presented by PwC, the podcast where we look to the past and present of our guests and what they think about your future. My name is Victoria O'Toole, and today with my colleague Yana Ford, we are joined by Paul Tweed. Paul is a leading defamation lawyer with over 30 years of experience. Over the course of this career, Paul has represented a number of well-known figures.
Thank you so much for joining us, Paul. I'd like to start with your career to media law was not linear. I heard you comment before that you applied at the start of your career to various different positions, like Governor of the Solomon Islands or lawyer in the Cayman Islands. At that point, what were you looking for out of a career?
Well, to be honest with you, I never really had a career in law in mind. My mother had been a legal secretary, and that was my only connection to law. And when I was 16 or 17, she put me under pressure to decide what I wanted to do and to make a decision on it, whatever it was. And whenever I was at that stage was more interested in football, rugby and tennis, wasn't really that focused on what I was going to do. So she said, right, that's it, you're going to apply to do law. And I think this was sort of quite intimidating for me because I was at best an average student, probably below average. I've never been academic, either at school or university. So I applied all around to various universities under the ACCA scheme, including Queen's, and Queen's was the only one that gave me an offer, so Queen's it was. So I managed to scrape my way through Queen's, got my degree, applied to what was the first year of what was a new legal institute. The first this was to replace the old apprenticeship scheme. And I managed again to scrape my way in there, got through, didn't really apply myself at all at that stage. I still didn't have any grand designs in terms of a specific career in the law. But when I finished, I knew I had to earn some money. I managed to run up an overdraft of £13,804 with absolutely no idea how I was going to pay it back. And in those days, that was quite a lot of money. And so I applied for a job advertising the Belfast Telegraph with a law firm, Johnson's, who were actually a conveyancing and corporate firm. Applied, and the partner there, senior partner Herbie McCracken, gave me a job, much to my surprise, for the grand starting salary of £2,500 per annum. So anyway, beggars can't be choosers as such, and I was more, at this stage, I thought, right, okay, let's give it a shot. After a couple of weeks in the firm, I realised this really wasn't going to be my gig at all, having to sit in an office, and very few, 2 or 3 cases of litigation which they'd sort of let me get involved in. But I was talking to friends, and they were saying, look, we're doing insurance work and we're getting down to court, to assist either in the solicitor. So that sounded quite interesting. So I put that in one side of my mind. The other side of my mind was, I need to get out of Belfast and I need to do something a bit more exciting. This is not the way I planned my life. And so it was only a matter of weeks into my 2 years restricted practicing, which I have to do. You weren't allowed to set up on your own for 2 years after you come out of the institute. So I started applying. One governor of the Cayman, or governor of the Solomon Islands was one of the ones. An IP lawyer with distillers, didn't even know what that meant, but I applied for those two. Needless to say, I didn't even get an acknowledgement from the Solomon Islands. I got an interview with distillers, and I got stuck in the questions, so that wasn't happening. But Mr. Walker from W.S. Walker and Company, his own firm in the Cayman Islands, was recruiting in the UK, and I applied for that. And much to my absolute astonishment, he offered me an interview in London and paid for the flights over, which was a big deal for me. And back in those days, went over, had a lovely lunch with him in the Cavendish Hotel. And he just said to me, look, I just got you over to curiosity. I've never known anyone with such backbone that would come in and put, you must be joking. How should you expect? I didn't expect a guest. But we had a lovely lunch, enjoyed the crack. It was, needless to say, I didn't get the job. But I came back suitably chastened, and then I went back to plan B, and friends were talking about these insurance companies, and I was sort of trying to get my head around how that worked. Soon picked it up, and so through connections I had, we managed to get introductions to some of the claims companies, primarily through Bob McCartney, who was a very well-known senior counsel. He'd sort of recommended the firm as opposed to me. But I got on to it very quickly, and I realised, look, a lot of people are taking the claims manager out to lunch to get to know them, to get an understanding. So I used my own money, or extended my overdraft, I should say, and I started to take the guys out and then get an understanding of what they were looking for, which has been my philosophy all my life, work out what the person wants, what does a client need, what they're looking for. And this was in the early days. And I had within 9 years, I built up, I think, about 13 insurance companies, and one of the most lucrative insurance practices in Belfast from nothing. I was also at that stage as well doing criminal injury work and working every hour, every day I possibly could, and really built up a very, very lucrative practice for Johnson's, for the firm. And then just in 1986, Bob McCartney, who I say was very high profile as a senior counsel, was accused, along with one of the top criminal QCs of his day, Des Bowl, of fighting over the last chocolate eclair in a Hollywood cake shop, and that's Hollywood County Down as opposed to Hollywood, California. That came much later in my career. And again, knew nothing about defamation law. Bob was incredibly determined. He carried him in a larger-than-life character, very massive backbone. I mean, there's nobody, he would no fear whatsoever in anything. So he basically ran the case, albeit he had the help of some very, very good lawyers, Sean Gill and David Ringdon, people in behind him. But he drove this case, and Des Bowl really came in behind him. Didn't really do an awful lot. But McCartney gave superb evidence before a 7-person working class Belfast jury, and they gave them £50,000 each, which was a lot of money in the mid 1980s. Yeah. And they weren't able to overturn it on appeal. And that just gave me the idea to wait in it. And then that in turn led to an introduction to BJ Eastwood, very famous promoter, bookmaker, and boxing manager. And he was getting into dispute with Barry McGuigan, who had been his protege. And so I got involved, got very friendly with him, worked hard, built up with different cases, litigation, which we managed to win at each cut and turn, which eventually came up to a massive libel case. We did a number of libel cases for him in the meantime, but it was a big one against Channel 5 video distribution in McGuigan. It ran for 5.5 weeks in Belfast, 1991. It became the longest running libel of its time, and it ultimately led to, again, 7-person Belfast jury, £450,000, which had a lot of significance, because there was a lot of arguments over whether a marker had been given for that same amount. Jury believed Eastwood. That was just the bottom line on it. And I knew if there was any right on out there that we would win it, because I'd been out with Barney. We had gone around the states. We'd interviewed the referee, the judges, former sparring partners, doctors, everyone. And, we were very, very confident, but we were the only 2 people who were confident in the case, along with Bob McCartney, who was fighting anyway. He was going on anyway. And everyone thought we were going to lose. I actually was approached by a neighbour who was a judge, saying, you're so young, your career's going to be over here. You can't. Why have you done this? Because I'd taken initiative of the whole thing. I mean, I'd made the decision to run the case, fight it, and everything. And I just, at this stage, we were 3/4 away through the case, so there was no way, you're going to pull it back anyway. And then we got that award. That then led on to, we brought in witnesses from all around the world, primarily the United States. Got to know a Philadelphia-based lawyer who played himself in Rocky IV, Jimmy Binns. He acted for sort of few of the well-known celebrities, but he was libelled by an Irish paper. We got his case resolved. And then we sort of just gradually built up the libel, started to become, to me anyway, more important or more interesting than the insurance work. We did a very high-profile case for Liam Neeson and his late wife in the late 90s. And then I had a few years with a very famous Irish singer who we will not mention here at the moment, but 3 years with him. And then, with the Coors and different people, most of the Irish actors, Colin Farrell, different people. And so I built up that practice. Then in 2006, big breakthrough, the internet was coming to the fore. And so American publications were suddenly available here, all around the world. And the National Enquirer had just decided, by coincidence, to open a European edition. And at that stage, we were approached after Britney Spears. And we got, I took action, and we got the case with their allegations that her marriage at that time had broken down. We took action against the National Enquirer, got an apology, And then I just thought to myself, and this sounds like totally obvious now, but back then you weren't thinking you got a case in court, you were thinking of getting a newspaper. But I just thought to myself, right, I need to get this out of line and to pump it back down the same way the original story had come up. And we did that, got it out there, and I remember sitting watching, I was in the US at the time, watching the apology just run from Belfast, London, Paris, right across Europe, over the Far East, Singapore, Australia, and back in LA where I wanted it to be. Seconds. And then 7 to 20 seconds. I couldn't believe it. I was actually mesmerised myself watching this get up. So then, of course, everyone caught on to it. I mean, we realised we could do that, and with J-Lo or Arsenal, we got a whole run, and I can name drop for Ireland if you want, or UK, Ireland, anywhere. But I mean, it was good, fantastic publicity for me, and it was fantastic for the client because they got their apologies out there far more effectively than if they were involved in a court hearing, which we may have limited publication or take a long time to get through there. And I've been able to use that approach right to the present day against social media and the various online sites and platforms. We also got a big advantage, of course, nowadays that Facebook, Twitter, all decided to open a European, Middle Eastern and African headquarters in Dublin. I couldn't believe my luck. Cottage industry appeared, where all of a sudden they had been trying to take advantage of tax tourism as opposed to the libel tourism I'm frequently accused of. They then opened themselves up to European and Irish defamation, privacy and data protection laws. So that's really where we are. That's where I managed to build up. And, we've got a practice. I've had various firms we've changed in recent years. I also, in the late 90s or mid-90s, realised the importance of if nobody's going to want Paul Tweed, I'm just going to be in Belfast for the rest of my life. That's the way, so be it. That's the way we do it. So I decided I would open an office in Dublin and one in London. And that in turn would internationalise the firm because we could bring in the international clients who'd be more like compass. I still, to this day, I'm asked frequently by people, like, why is some Hollywood A-lister coming to, a boy from Belfast, basically? And that's still after all, and I've fought in every court, whether it's the United States, the Middle East, wherever, France, we go around to do it. But that, people think, for some odd reason, that, we're, if you like, less effective than a London or New York lawyer. And I've never really got that, but, I would say that anyway. But basically what I've been able to do is from a very, low cost base, I've been able to operate around the world. And although most of our work comes into our London office or in our London office, the main engine room would be in Belfast. And we've been able to work that very, very effectively. And also in terms of being a child of troubles, I quite often get threatened when you're going into court or get threatened, full stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a fairly difficult situation at the moment where I've had to put a complaint in to the United Nations Special Rapporteur for the Protection of Lawyers and Judges, where, we've been following. That's the type of work I do. And then my problem is that I quite often get associated with my clients. Because over the years, I've acted for accused people of, serious sexual offences, but I act for many victims. I mean, I've had record settlements for people who are victims. And, I've fought very, very hard. No matter what side I'm on, I take the view that everyone's entitled to access to the courts. Courts are supposed to be the ultimate arbiter. Unfortunately, as Prince Andrew case will confirm, the court of public opinion has now become more important in many ways than the court of law. Two reasons for that being social media and the speed with which allegations spread around and people can, put their opinions out there. And secondly, the courts are so slooming. Everything's changing with AI. I mean, our world now is going to be AI, and I'm trying to work out how we deal with a situation. I mean, is ChatGPT any less liable than the Belfast Telegraph? Why should it be? If somebody puts out, and we've had situations where publishers, I act for plaintiffs and defendants, so I act for publishers. We've had publishing clients who have tested both Bard, the Google AI platform, and ChatGPT. And if some of the stuff has come back, I mean, to say it's defamatory is absolutely, but more importantly, the reason on the basis for it has been newspaper articles cited that just don't exist. Just not even there. I mean, one particular publisher here, an Irish publisher, put it through, and they had their article cited dated 14th March in relation to an allegation that senior members of the legal profession in Ireland had been accused of sexual misconduct. No such article existed. It took 3.5 weeks for the robot or whatever was at the other end to actually change it. So that's a world we're all going into, and it's fine. You know, people say, well, look, AI is doing a lot of good. They're going to do A, B, C, and D, which is fine. The same way social media. You know, people in Africa and places like that, they depend very much on the likes of Facebook to communicate. But there's still got to be accountability. If there's no accountability, the credibility goes, and that's one of the problems that, you know, we're all faced with. So AI is my new battleground. So, and I would just say any young lawyers, you know, setting out onto a career, there's 2 things you need to do. You need to be thinking ahead of what the situation is going to be in 1 year's time. I used to say 5 years, 1 year's time. And secondly, they need to know languages. Language over. But I'm a typical Belfast boy. I say I can just about speak English. When I'm down in the Middle East, they say I speak too quickly and they don't understand me. But they say things like, I thought, Mr. Paul, I could speak English until, you know, or understand English till you came down. But languages. I mean, critically important. French, Arabic, Spanish. If you don't have those, you're going to be severe. And it doesn't matter what branch of the law, in my opinion, you go into. If you want to have an international practice, if you want to be able to see the world globally, which we're all going, I mean, that's what we are now. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether something happens in Belfast or something happens in New York. Everything is just in the global village now. And so to be able to communicate is key. I've tried all these different devices, you know, to save me having to learn that translate, but I've managed to get to working effectively yet. But I mean, that's really what you need now.
I 100% agree. Like, it's become, I suppose, a daily occurrence where a document will be thrown on my desk and it's in Chinese or German. And it's just, when you don't know those languages, it can be quite difficult. It's sort of getting that skill to figure out, well, if I don't know, where can I go? What's important I can get? And
yes,
it is quite difficult.
Critically important.
And you're curious, when you mention AI and obviously the movement from the start of your career where it was newspapers to then social media and now AI, for you, when each of these new challenges, new battlegrounds comes up, are you excited by that or are you hesitant?
No, that's what keeps me going. I mean, people say to me at my stage, what is it? What motivates you? Why, you don't need to do this. Why don't you retire? I could think of nothing worse. But I still get a buzz, major buzz. I like challenges. That's what keeps me going. It's not even processing the stuff. I like to get the challenge. I like to work out how do we deal with this. And I like to try and I think, as I say, I've never been academic, probably borderline stupid in many ways, but I have, but there's something in there that I am able to get solutions that I know other people have never been able to do, or if they have been able to do it, they haven't had the confidence to try them out and put them into practice. But that's really what keeps me motivated now. It's a challenge of these new directions. And AI are only like the tip of the iceberg in many ways, because there are going to be lots of other factors leading out from that. And most people, if you listen to last week, President Biden had all the heads of all the various AI operations, whether it's Microsoft or Google or whatever. And, to me, I've just listened, what came out of that? Nothing. And what the platforms want to do, they want to look as if they are concerned about the future. I'm concerned about the present. I'm concerned what's happening at this very moment in time, not, what steps they're going to take to put safety nets in place. And that's something we've got to look at very, very carefully and expose it where possible.
When it comes to those, you say you love the challenge, you love the excitement of it. Are you ever, you said at the very beginning of your career, not having a background in defamation and then being involved in massive libel cases, are you ever intimidated by the scale of the case or by the, quote, celebrity?
No, I've got used to it. I mean, like over the years, like I say, I could name drop for the UK and Ireland many times over. And most of them, will not be known. And obviously for client confidentiality, we can't put them out. It's only those cases or those clients that we've had news coverage on. But they all have one thing in common. I'm like a dentist. The one moment in time they need me, I forgot my name probably, within weeks, some of them. And some will say that does not apply to all by any means. There's some that we have a very good relationship with, but that one issue that's critically important for them at that moment in time. But the issues are very, very similar. It's just maybe a different name, that's involved. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a Hollywood A-lister or whether it's somebody, that owns a shop, in Cornmarket. It doesn't, the problems are the same and the urgency is the same. One of the difficulties I do have is that I've tried to cut back on the late night phone calls, but normally the problems arise on a Friday night, just whenever you just think that glass of wine would be very, very nice. You're waiting just to have it, and no doubt. And then I've always got to be very careful. I can't have a drink until, I know there's going to be no calls, because even one glass of wine can change one's advice. It's surprising, you can be much more. But unfortunately with the Sunday is still the days that the investigative journalism comes out, and that means Friday night, Saturday morning. So that would be my busier time, albeit I guillotine it now much earlier than I would have years ago, so that I can have that glass of wine the Friday night. But it's very, very, the world is changing rapidly, but the issues are the same. It's just they're coming from different sources.
You describe your work in quite harsh terms. You talk about like a battleground, and you mentioned the word guillotine back there. How do you deal with this sort of intensity and like constant, and how do you deal with it without getting incredibly fatigued? Because I listen to you and I get tired listening about your day to day.
Yeah. No, well, I've always had, a very strong work ethic. I don't need a lot of sleep. I start every morning at 5. Because I get the tail end of the American work. I get my PA set up, either the night before, and they will be typing. I'm lucky, my longest serving PA has been with me from the beginning, from when I was a trainee, and she's still going strong. But unfortunately for me, she's an insomniac, so she will be typing during the night, and the stuff. So I got it all ready to go. So it's just, I don't know. You need to keep going. People are saying that I was in South Carolina last week, but they were saying, "Was you have a nice relaxing holiday?" I was busier last week, mainly because I was being attacked by I'm not even going into too much detail by people, but I worked flat out, non-stop, 24/7. The Arlene Foster case, for instance, we did about 2 or 3 years ago. It broke on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, and that's the way. That's the nature of the job. My work doesn't stop because I'm on holiday or because everyone else is on holiday. It goes continually, and I've always been like that, and I enjoy it. I don't play golf, don't play tennis, don't do any of these things. Try to spend a bit of time with the kids, but I say I would not be trying to claim too much credit on that end. My eldest son is a doctor. He said didn't want to be a lawyer because of the long hours I worked, and so he decided to be a doctor and specialised in respiratory and infectious diseases. So you can imagine what he was doing over the last 3 years in the front line while London hospitals, and he still thinks it's worse for me. But
when it comes to that drive, is that something that you think that young lawyers have? Do you see similar traits in young lawyers that come into the media field, or is there anything that you think that they could improve on, or that would help with particularly?
They either have it or they don't. Some have it, some don't. I've been really fortunate with the team I've got at the moment in particular, very similar to myself. Like they work hours, they shouldn't have to work, they don't. And I try to encourage them, just to get a work-life balance. Don't end up like me where you're spending your life, basically working. You either have the drive, but there are others come in that don't. We had just, in fact, in the last couple of years, I noticed a big change in young, just recently qualified lawyers or those coming in even for a training contract. And they're sort of asking me what I can do for them, instead of, to quote JFK, what they can do for me. And I'm not sounding, that maybe it's coming out the wrong way, but when I was younger, I knew I had to impress the boss. It's simple as that. Whereas I had to impress the client, it's not, what I can do. And one person we interviewed, she had her iPad in front of her with this list of questions, finding out, Will I get paid for a weekend work? Will I have to do this? By the way, I'm not doing that. And then I need to work at home 2 days a week, and that needs to be variable. I mean, I had real difficulty. I thought I'd develop lockjaw because I couldn't get my mouth to close after it. But, there's a contrast. You either have it or you don't. Media law is slightly different from maybe other aspects of the law where it is 24/7. Immediate reaction. You've got to be thinking on your feet the whole time. You've got to, answers. You can't go off and think about a lot of the stuff. You've got to be ready to do it. And so it's not everyone's cup of tea. And I would say anyone that, has any reservations about hard work, quick decisions, being able to, you need two things to be a good media lawyer. And I've said this many, many times, but, and I'll use different expressions perhaps, but judgment is key. Not how well you did in your exams, judgment. And the second one is backbone. Sometimes we use another word beginning with B for that one here, but it is backbone. And, my lawyers have been lucky. Those two, if they don't have both of those, and you must have both, one's no good, we don't take them on. I'd rather do the work myself. And, these guys that we're driving the firm here at the moment, I've got both in spades, but, there are plenty of people that they don't have it. And, it's not that you have to be some form of gladiator or something like that there, but you've got to just keep your nerve. Always keep your nerve, because people will try and rock you the whole time, particularly in the world that we are living in where the media can turn on us very, very quickly, whenever we are associated with, wrongly, we're associated with what our clients have done or stand for, instead of being officers of court representing everybody, no matter where or what you're doing or where you're coming from. But, it comes naturally to me. I've never had any difficulty with it, and it comes naturally to the guys that have come in behind me. And I've trained more lawyers over the last 40 years, and I can tell I just know literally maybe take me 3 to 5 minutes to work out whether they've got it or not. That's maybe an exaggeration, less than 3 minutes.
So hypothetically, right, I'm coming in here for a job interview. What is the one piece, what's the first skill that you would look for that is absolutely necessary? And then what's the one piece of advice that you would give me?
Enthusiasm. You've got to come in looking to want to come to work for us, not to have a situation to find out what we can do for you. That's absolute. And that would be a very common feeling in a lot of people that come in. It's very hard for me to put it into words as to what it is I'm looking for, but I know very quickly in personality if somebody's got it or not. And it's the same with the clients. That's the first thing I try to do. It normally takes me, I'm not exaggerating, I would be very disappointed if I haven't got a feel of a client within about 3 minutes. Yeah. And I work out, what their psyche is, what they want, what I can deliver. Yeah. And, and I try to be blunt and honest with the clients. Some of people don't like that. But it's in their interests in the longer term, because once you get on, the liable roller coaster, very difficult to get off, and it can be very expensive to get off. So it's important that you get everything hammered out at the time. So that would be the key thing. And like I said earlier, it's not your grades, somebody who's got a first class in law may not be in the same league as somebody who's struggled to get a third class. They may not fit. They may fit into a certain type of aspect, maybe some of the bigger London law firms where you've got teams around you and your talent can be partitioned. But in the world I live in, I'm looking for those two attributes first that I just mentioned. And then the bonus, the icing on the cake, languages. Second bonus, languages. And the third bonus, languages. That's key, and being able to do that. But it's quite fun. I didn't realize, there are different Arabic dialogues, for instance, so you can, just because you can speak to an Algerian in Arabic doesn't mean you can speak to, a Saudi. They've all these different dialects and things as well. French is a good one. It's probably a common one. I was the last school, in the world that did German for the language. I never really understood why, but French covers North Africa, which is great, because we do quite a bit of work, Libya, Tunisia, we do a lot in the Middle East, and they would be, the clients get frustrated with me, and I can sense I can't sort of hide it in many ways because of my inability, because and then invariably I have to get somebody else to act as an interpreter, and that in turn leads to problems, because I like to know, what exactly has been said from the horse's mouth, rather than, somebody else trying to interpret it.
I'm curious, you said the barrier of language when it comes to working in all these different countries. What are the other difficulties that come and opportunities that come with being so global?
I think there's no doubt. I think it's more, you have to be global to actually take advantage of anything at the moment. Sure, there's nothing. I do literally no work in Northern Ireland now. Literally no. We have a couple of just cases that we've had going for a while. We'll take the odd one or two cases, but it's a very, very difficult one to make money here. And I don't want to sound callous on it, but I've got to pay for my staff. So most of our work would be channeled from London into Dublin, and for the reasons I've outlined. And that's where the main market would be. In terms of being able to answer your question, to get the global impact has come basically from years of experience and hard work. I just literally work, I've been prepared to get on a plane and fly down to Tunis at a moment's notice, or down to Algiers, or wherever it's required. I've always been prepared to do that. I've tried to give, advice. It's just trying to understand what they're looking for and the subtleties are involved. We're living in a world of disinformation. So these podcasts are going out, or the YouTube videos, very difficult to deal with them all. But the big YouTube is a big problem in the Middle East in particular, because political rivals are putting out stuff knowing that it's virtually impossible to get it taken down. And then, of course, Google normally will only take down offending material in the jurisdiction you've got the court orders. You've got to get a court order in each and every jurisdiction. So that may mean you happen to go to Switzerland, France, Germany, or whatever to do that. But again, you have to have that global reach, because there's obviously no point in operating. What's the point in getting an injunction in Belfast, which only applies to the jurisdiction of Northern Ireland, for a Tunisian, who's been libelled on YouTube with their headquarters in Dublin.
How did you find it navigating all of these different legal landscapes? And I suppose, how did you learn to do that so quickly?
It wasn't so quick. It's been over quite a long period of time, and I'll not say I've navigated them all successfully. I've got a very strong build-up of law firms that I have a strong connection with, that get people who work very, very similar to me, whether it's Paris, Geneva, or wherever. So, I would bring them, and I don't try to fight on, away from home, if you like, without having appropriate advisory people with me. Although in California, I've been a foreign legal consultant, that only entitles me to give evidence in UK and Irish law. It's not, it doesn't really, you always would work with, a California attorney, and invariably most of our work comes via Californian attorneys. So you would work with them, but still, London and Dublin are still the most effective means of dealing with defamation and privacy. They still are. United States is still the First Amendment protection. And, basically in many jurisdictions or many states, there's a right to libel. It's very difficult to deal with it. The Johnny Depp case has maybe turned that upside down. And obviously the case, we've had the Alex Jones case, with the shooting, they've given a whole new momentum to new defamation cases in the United States, and also the Dominion case against Fox. So if I was younger, I would actually be opening that office in LA, where I probably would have preferred to have been many years ago. Unfortunately, my wife, she prefers to be in this side of the Atlantic, so it has never really been an option, even though I wanted to. But there is definitely, I would say, in all my career, this is the most exciting time to be a media lawyer, without a doubt.
I'm curious, if you could introduce a piece of legislation to one of these jurisdictions that you work in that would help and be a big benefit to the work that you do, what would you like to introduce? I
would like a legislation that would repeal Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act in the United States, which affords protection to only online platforms, makes them different from every other publisher. And also then like to reform the e-com directive in Europe, which again, they all rely on. I get a code at every letter I get in. You can't touch us. We're protected by the e-com directive. Which I would agree with, by the way. We've got a number of cases pending. They're going to be challenging that, but that would be the legislation I'd like to see.
And to start finishing up, what advice would you have to someone that has an interest in media law but maybe doesn't fully understand what the day-to-day, what the actual work on the ground is like?
Well, I would say to anyone, none of my kids, four kids, want to do it there. And they just absolutely see what I do, that my wife's a lawyer as well. She doesn't do media law, but it's not for everyone. In fact, it's for a very small percentage of people. If I was doing it again, I think I would try and partition it a lot more, where my personal life was maybe less affected. I really don't know. I've tried many times to try and see how you can do that. I haven't managed to work that out yet. So anyone coming into it, has to come in on the basis that it is you're devoting yourself to it full time and forget about the golf. That's just not going to be mixed in with it. And the only way, I've worked on the basis of, obviously we get work in as a result of the high profile cases we've done over the years. But the only real way to be certain to get work in is to do the job well. To do the job well, you've got to devote yourself 24/7. So I wouldn't even contemplate doing media or becoming a media lawyer, I should say, unless you're prepared to at least start from that premise. And then hopefully you'll be smarter than me and you'll be able to partition your time more effectively.
So this is the last question. We ask this to everyone and everyone ends up getting stumped. But imagine yourself when you were back in Queen's. Did you imagine you would have been where you are today, or even if you would have had the same sort of aspirations as where you are today?
I always had confidence way beyond my ability, and that's still the case. So while I was at Queen's, I just knew I was going to do something that would be different from most other people. And say, my mother probably injected that into me, didn't do me any favours, because I could have come a cropper at any time. But I've been lucky. But as I say, it's not necessarily for your ability, it is hard work. There's no easy way around it. In the old adage about the concert violinist, I would give my right arm to be able to play like you, or give my life, to be able to play like you. And he said, yes, I've done that. I've given my life, and that's it. There's a little way. And I said, it's not necessarily the right thing to do, and not actually something I would encourage, but that's the answer.
Paul, thank you so much.
No problem at all.